Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Letter of Law Interviews. My name is Sarthak Bharadwaj, and in the 19th episode of this interview series, I'm absolutely delighted, thrilled, and so honored to be in conversation with Mr. Manu Sebastian, who is the managing editor of one of India's foremost independent legal journalism platforms, Live Law. Before joining Live Law, Sir has also worked as a judicial law clerk cum researcher at the Supreme Court of India and has also litigated before the High Court of Kerala. Um, I enjoy reading Sir's pieces in Live Law with great delight. And as I was telling Sir before we started recording, that it's such an honor for me to be in conversation with you today, Sir. Thank you so much for taking time out and being here with me today.
Thank you, Sarthak, for that elaborate introduction.
Wonderful.
Very much delighted to be in your show.
Thank you so much, sir. So, sir, to start this off, I'd like you to introduce yourself briefly to our listeners, because the introduction I gave of you is how I understand you based on your LinkedIn profile. But how do you like to introduce yourself to people?
So, Sarthak, you have given the introduction. I don't want to add much further. That those are the facts. So, I graduated from Symbiosis Law School in 2011. Then, for a while, I did Judicial Law Clerkship in the Supreme Court of India. That was with Justice Deepak Verma. He has retired now. And then I shifted to Kerala, and I was doing litigation in the High Court of Kerala and other courts and tribunals in Kerala. And in 2013, it was in 2013 that Live Law started. So I came in contact with Mr. Ramya Rashid, who is the founder of Live Law, and also Advocate PV Dinesh, another co-founder of Live. So right from the beginning of Live Law itself, I used to be a contributor. I used to do judgment reporting and write analysis, etc. And so I could witness the growth of Live Law right from its beginning. How, because when it was started in a very small scale, it was like something like a blog in the beginning with maybe 2-3 articles published a day, etc. But gradually the growth was exponential, and it went on to become one of the most premier legal reporting websites in India. So I had this passion for law and journalism even during my college days as well. I had this passion for interest for journalism and media reporting, etc. So if I was not a lawyer, I would probably have become a proper hardcore journalist.
Right.
That's so this was a field where you can blend both your interests, law and journalism together. And legalism was also an expanding. So it was around in 2019. 2019, I decided to join the editorial board of Live Law full time. And since then, I've been occupying the position of managing editor, and our operations have also expanded. We are now covering more high courts and other tribunals. We are mostly we are covering the length and breadth of the country, and we aspire to become the most an exhaustive legal news agency kind of an organization where our readers will get every possible legal news happening in the country. You don't need to refer to any other portal. So we want to give that exhaustive coverage. So that is our aspiration, and we are in that path. Thankfully, we might achieve it.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And as a subscriber of Live Law, I can safely say that it is truly one of the foremost legal news portals. And we can't thank you enough, sir, for all that you do. So, but before we actually start talking about your time as a journalist at Live Law, there's a lot more that I'd like to cover, starting with your law school journey, sir. So like you said, you went to Symbiosis Law School, Pune, and that's where you discovered your love for the law in addition to journalism. So how did that happen? We see that you write a lot of in-depth editorials. So were you always interested in writing, and how did you discover that you like journalism in addition to law?
see, I had always this interest for current affairs and political happenings. I always used to keep an eye on all these during my school days itself. That's how I came to law itself. Otherwise, during that time, in 2000, 2006, that I completed my class 12. So at that point of time, I'm from the area where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a small town in Kerala. So law was not a natural choice. People often, opted for engineering or medicine. So these were the default options. So and generally it was felt that people who don't get admission in these two courses will go for law. And people had not started hearing much about national law schools also within the in the circumstances where I was living. So for me, I mean, the decision to take law itself was, I had to do a lot of persuasion and convincing a lot of people, not just my parents, teachers, and also relatives, etc. So there are a lot of stakeholders, so
Right.
that itself was a in their perception an unusual choice. And my attraction to this field itself was due to my interest in current affairs and all these things. So law empowers you to keep a track of all these developments. You will be able to understand and appreciate things in a better manner if you have a legal background. So that's how I came to law. That
Definitely.
was my journey.
That's an interesting story, sir. And, just like you said that back when you went to law school, the NLUs were just becoming more and more popular. And I think the first job that you took up
Right.
right after law school, that's that of a judicial law clerk, that those positions were also just springing up, right?
Right.
So
Right.
what was it like for you to take up the position of a judicial law clerk back when I don't think the process even was that streamlined? Now we have a proper exam and everything for
Right.
the
Right.
Supreme Court.
Right.
So what was
Right.
your entire experience and vision behind taking up a clerkship position?
Uh, so to be frank, that was I because immediately after your law graduation, you didn't have much ideas to do what next, etc. So like everyone applied, I also applied for the judicial clerkship. And that point of time, there were no written tests. There was an interview.
Okay.
So you attended the interview, and so after that, I enrolled and I joined the litigation office in Kerala. So it was after few months that I got the call that I got selected. So then I joined the office of Justice Deepak Verma, and it was interesting. I mean, it was for the first time I was seeing Supreme Court, and so I go to attend the chambers of the judge as well as the court proceedings. So like every law clerks do, you have to go through the briefs and prepare a note, and the judge will be assigning you some topics for research, so you have to help with the research, etc. So it was a very interesting experience for me. It was time I was getting to see the practical side of law.
Right.
You had this theoretical knowledge in college, but now you are seeing how law is being interpreted, how law is being used by lawyers for getting relief for their clients, and and I had this firsthand. I could witness, advocacy getting
Yeah.
dust in Supreme Court. I could see all these legendary lawyers arguing and how they are handling the court, their court craft, etc. So it was a very delightful experience in that side, very educative and very enlightening as well. So I could see how a case is shaping up in court. For example, in the uh, uh, because the judge used to this is Deepak Verma, he used to be prepared. Uh, and very often he comes with a preset view because he has gone through the files of whether to dismiss or
Sure.
admit, etc. So that they have a fair idea about what to do. But after sometimes listening to the lawyers, they might change their views, and they might admit a case which they thought they'll dismiss. So I could witness all these things, all these dynamics happening, and it was very interesting. And I also, at that point of time, the hearing in this BMW case, remember, BMW hit and run case, Sanjeev Nanda case.
All
So
right. Oh,
that the final hearings of that case was happening. the appeal from the Delhi High Court judgment. So the Delhi High Court had reduced the sentence. So the state had appealed, and the legendary lawyer Ram Jethmalani was appearing for the accused. So I could witness his arguments as well. So that's I. So that was a big, like I was really thrilled. So the arguments were going on for for many days. So afternoon the bench will be hearing this matter alone after finishing the other admission matters. So it was like a very thrilling experience for me. I could witness all these legendary lawyers arguments.
Certainly.
And later on, it helped my litigation as well. When I went back to Kerala, and so it was my first experience with courtroom advocacy.
Right.
Then that way it was quite educating and enlightening.
Right. And thanks for sharing that with us, sir. And it's interesting that you say that, it was helpful in your litigation journey back in Kerala, because that forms my next question as to what got you interested in doing litigation, and that too in Kerala, because a lot of people feel that, starting your litigation career in a metro city like Delhi or Bombay is the right thing to do, because they have all the quote unquote best bar and so on. But what was it like for you to leave Delhi and return to Kerala to litigate?
So I thought if I'm doing litigation, then I should be at a place where my roots are. So I thought that will help me to in my litigation field. And also, I also consulted many seniors, also many friends, and it was their suggestion that okay, maybe you can do your litigation for a few years in Kerala, and later on, if you want to shift, you can shift. So you'll be having a base somewhere. And also, I had certain family reasons as well to shift back to Kerala at that point of time. So and that's how it happened.
Wonderful. Now, sir, because you have this experience, I'd like to know a certain thing from you. There's a lot of discussion in my law school and other law students that I'm aware of as to where to start their practice from. A lot of people come from across the country in Delhi to study, but they feel that, living in Delhi is not going to be sustainable at a litigation salary. As we all know, those aren't very, very good at the initial stages, at least. And so they return back to their hometown. Some choose to stay. What's your impression? Should people come to Delhi for the presence of the Supreme Court and various tribunals, or should they actually, like you said, return to their roots, build a base, and then try to migrate to the Supreme Court if things work out well?
See, I don't think I can give a very clear, hard and first answer for that. I've seen many people. I have friends who have started off in Delhi and who are doing well. People who are not from Delhi, like even from Kerala also, there are people who started practicing in Delhi or other cities which are not their hometowns, and they are doing quite well. And even like if you see the Supreme Court lawyers as well, there are people who have started their practice in Supreme Court or in High Courts, and many of them are doing well. And the other scenario is also happening. So I can't give a clear answer, but maybe it all depends on your personal choice. You have to decide. You have to judge your circumstances. You have to think. If you will be able to sustain yourself in a part of city, in another city which is not your hometown. And sometimes you may not be comfortable doing your job in your hometown. Maybe you may not be syncing with your local situation.
Mm-hmm.
So then may not be a good idea for to go back to your hometown or your whatever place. So nice. Maybe that a person should decide depending on your comfort level and also your circumstances. And there are no clear answers as such, because I've seen both categories of people and who are doing well in both categories as well. Right. So you can't say one is good or one is bad. So.
Definitely. So it's supposed to be a personal choice. Wonderful. So moving on now, coming to your journey as a journalist and your live law journey, like you said, it was somewhere in 2016 that you joined live law. properly, and in 2013 I think it was set up. So what prompted your shift from litigation to the field of legal journalism, and what was the entire transition like for you?
Uh, One correction, I joined full time in 2019.
Oh, sure.
So 2016, etc. I was doing my freelance writing and as well other contributions, etc. So I used to be I found this very thrilling to say, uh, and even my writings. So because when you are doing litigation, you are doing your personal cases and your cases of your senior, etc. But uh, this is giving you another canvas, a broader canvas, where we can uh, comment upon larger issues, analyze larger issues which are affecting the society uh, in a more substantial manner than your personal cases which impact your own personal litigants. Uh, and it was also a personal choice. And I'm like I have a more liking for this job,
Certainly.
and it gives me more fulfillment. That's it.
Wonderful. So, sir, I'd like to ask some questions, about the editorial work that you do at Live Law. These are some of the questions that I've had on my mind for a very long time. One, for instance, how do you select what news is important to be reported? Now, like you said, of course, Live Law has expanded to cover the length and breadth of India, and all sorts of courts and tribunals are being covered. But back when there weren't that many resources, how did you choose which judgment is important to report, which isn't? I'm sure that must have been a challenging decision to make.
Right. So there will be judgments which are laying down important points of law or constitutional matters, constitutional cases. So and also there will be certain judgments which are of general news value. For example, a case involving a politician or a celebrity, etc. They will be having the news value, even though they may not be having that legal binding message. And also there will be judgments uh, which are interpreting points of law which have binding force in on other courts and tribunals, etc. So this is where I think my litigation experience helped me, because so I can perceive a judgment from the angle of a lawyer. So
Yeah.
how this judgment will be benefiting a practicing lawyer. So because see, as far as Live Law is concerned, our primary audience, our main audience is that is the group of practicing lawyers, the litigating lawyers, and who are dealing with all these regular matters, civil, criminal, miscellaneous petitions, service matters, etc. So so I'm thinking from their perspective, how a judgment will be beneficial for them and how it can impact pending litigations, etc. For example, there will be certain core litigation areas. Uh, there will be a lot of cases being filed in certain fields of law and on certain points of law as well. There will be batch matters pending in high courts and other courts, etc. And there will be certain judgments which are answering those points. So that we'll be tracking. So basically, our yardstick is if the judgment is laying down a point of law, having a binding value, that needs to be covered.
Yeah.
And also judgments on public important matters, constitutional matters. So that way we filter the matters.
I see. That's very interesting. Another question that emerges from your answer, sir, is the process of bringing that news to people. Um, from my understanding, I think in the area of journalism, time is of the essence, right? If there's a scoop, then the
Right.
story has to be out as soon as possible and before anyone else. Now, do you think, sir, that sometimes
Right.
compromises the journalistic rigor or the depth of an article for the sake of speed?
I agree with that to a certain extent. Sometimes, in that rush, you might not be able to cover the news of the development in its required detail. That happens. But we supplement that by later publishing another articles, another article analyzing the different angles or different perspectives in the developments. So follow-up articles can be certainly better. But as you said, that especially in this, internet, social media world, even a difference of few minutes that can change a lot. And a news has, earlier used to be said that news has a value of 1 day. It's
Yeah.
not true. That is not correct in the social media age. News may be having a value of maybe a few minutes or few hours. That also can happen. So
That's true.
so that pressure of time is there, certainly, especially if you're working in online media, that time matters. And if you're losing on time, then your relevance will be gone. So
Yeah.
that pressure is always there. And so that is the pressure and challenge also, which this job demands, that you have to be fast and you have to grasp the things also fast, and you have to present it in a manner which is readable for the readers. And essential information has also to be conveyed. But sometimes, as you said, it happens that, we tend to miss out certain things, etc., when we do it in that haste. That can happen. But we supplement it with other articles and maybe update the story extra. That can be done.
Right. That's a very interesting insight, sir. And another question is, coming back to the evolution of live law and your own journey with it. Like you said, when it started, it was a small platform, and now it has grown into this big news portal that almost all lawyers and law students turn to for the legal news. Do you feel there's a change in the way you approach your writing? Because earlier, perhaps you felt that not many people are going to read it. So you could be slightly lackadaisical in your approach. But now it's a fact that judges are reading it, lawyers are reading
Right,
it, professors are reading it.
right.
Does that create pressure in your mind?
Definitely, that creates a pressure. And earlier, during my beginning days, lackadaisical that is also correct. And I used to be more, what you say, more forthcoming, and with, so now you have to think, how to present it, how this will be received, because a lot of people would be reading. So that pressure is definitely there. But I think that pressure helps me to uh, increase my quality, increase the quality also, because otherwise you will be careless. And, now you can't afford to be careless and casual in your life. That is the
Definitely.
problem.
So have you ever self-censored yourself, knowing that perhaps this might tip a certain person off, and because we have such a wide viewership, we have to remain more neutral and more careful? Or are you still that raw, unabashed writer that you always were?
We have this editing process, and also internally also you have an editor working.
Yeah.
So your own article you write, and then you also edit, because you have the sense of responsibility now. Now it's live law is widely read, so you have to that it also brings a lot of responsibilities.
True.
So, and also you can't cross certain lines as well. You have laws of defamation, criminal contempt, etc. are also there. So you have to circumscribe your writing within the confines of law.
Mm-hmm.
So that editorial process is always there, and internally also it happens. And certain things you have to present it in a different manner, and certain things you have to let the readers figure out. Let them read between the lines, and because readers are also intelligent.
Definitely.
That is first thing. Don't feed yours with, so but they just need to give just need to give the orientation for that, to guide their thinking. So the first thing is that you have to assume that your reader is more intelligent than you.
Right.
So with that premise, if you write, your writing will definitely, uh, you will be writing in a different direction, in a different orientation.
True.
That
That's a
is,
very interesting take on writing, and I'll keep that in mind when I'm writing my own articles. Thanks for sharing that, sir.
because as a reader also, when you read certain things, sometimes you feel that your intelligence is being questioned. The writer, whoever writes, uh, because so when you write, you think as a reader as well. Your experience as a reader also will come into play. So I write with this premise always, uh, presenting the prospective reader in a higher pedestal.
That's sound advice. That's sound advice that all should be well to imbibe. Thanks for sharing that, sir. So moving on, so a lot of these online news portals do this wonderful feature of attaching the order and judgment of whichever story they're reporting. But
Right,
sometimes
right.
it happens that because the reporter is in court, he or she knows what has happened and can report according to their own notes. But the order is uploaded on the website only a few days later. This is a common practice we've seen.
Right.
But do you feel that, so a journalist has uploaded an article, the order hasn't been attached to it, and the reader might one day read the order and feel that no, this article was misleading. Is that a concern in your mind, or do you feel that the reporter's own experiences in court are valid enough to report on an issue?
Sure. See, we do live courtroom reporting as well. We do
Right,
live tweeting as well.
right.
So in our reports, we report, we give sufficient clarity that we are reporting what transpired in the court.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is an oral observation, we clarify that it's an oral observation. So if you see our reports also, you can, there will be definitely places where we specifically mention the judge orally, the court orally observed.
Right.
The court orally asked. And it can happen that, the final order uploaded by the court, that might be different, because the order may not be capturing or including all arguments which happened in the court.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you see the Pegasus, and just giving an example,
Sure.
you see the Pegasus hearings, if you check the court proceedings, all the previous orders, they are only one-line orders, just adjourn or
Wow.
union being given more time. They are given 2 weeks time for counter affidavit, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person is only seeing these orders, that person might be thinking, okay, nothing happened. Government is so time, got granted time. But a lot of things happened. Hearings were very eventful. A lot of exchanges happened between the judges and lawyers preparing for all sides. So all these things you will see only in the reports, reports of Live Law and other news portals. But these things won't be reflected in the order. So oral hearing report is also important in that sense, because that otherwise these things are not recorded, what happened in the court.
Right.
So a person, to understand the real happenings, he or she will have to read the reports of the media.
Definitely. And that's very true, sir, because just like you said, you do live tweeting as well. And in times where the general public and even most law students and lawyers aren't permitted entry inside the Supreme Court in the virtual mode, the only way we have of knowing what transpires in court is either through the judgment and orders or through live tweeting and media reports. So in this setup, sir, how do you see the role of live tweeting? Because live tweeting has also been subjected to its fair share of criticism, where it has been said that, it plays to the gallery, it lowers the stature of proceedings and so on. But at the same time, it's also the only way to get an insight into the kind of comments and remarks lawyers and judges are making in court. So what do you see? How do you see the role of live tweeting in today's time?
I don't think live tweeting is lowering the stature of the court access, and I've not come across such criticisms. I've seen, I'm conscious of the criticism that sometimes, when you are tweeting, because your Twitter has a word limit, and you are tweeting in a thread.
Mm-hmm.
So, but sometimes, some tweets by themselves, by standalone tweets, they might go viral, they might get noticed for. And other readers, they may not be understanding the real context of the observation. So they might be making certain comments, certain ill-informed comments. That can happen. But I don't think it is lowering the stature of the court or proceedings as such. And we are reporting whatever is happening. And
Definitely.
So if we are just performing the role of a mirror. We are just reflecting what is happening in the court for others, because others can't because they don't have access to court, or they may not be having the time to go to court.
Certainly.
So if the whatever happens is good, then that will reflect well on the proceedings. If I mean, if it is otherwise, the situation will be different.
Fair enough.
But this thing is there. I mean, sometimes the Twitter threads, they might not be reflecting or capturing the context of the happenings. So people may not understand the context, and they might make extreme comments without really
Right.
understanding or appreciating what is happening.
Right.
So that is there, but let's see. I mean, we are also conscious of that. So that's why we always tweet in the form of a thread,
Mhm.
so that a person can go back to the or scroll up or scroll down and can understand the entire context.
Right.
But people, most often, they don't show that patience.
Right.
In social media, people just when they're scrolling, they see something, they comment and they just leave it there. So that's
Right.
so
That's true.
that's
So moving on, I'd like to talk a little bit about legal journalism as an alternate career. These are some of the final set of questions that I have, because I understand we're approaching the end of the interview, running short of time. So we see legal journalism becoming a very viable career option for people. There are students, fresh law grads, who are actually going forward with it rather than applying, sitting for the judiciary exam, or just joining a seniors chamber and so on, or maybe a firm. So in this setup, sir, what do you see the role of young law grads contributing to legal journalism, especially because they do not have any journalistic background? They don't have a degree in journalism. So is a law degree sufficient to embark on a career of legal journalism?
you definitely need to have a low degree. That's that's a
No,
minimum
no.
you
What I meant, I'm
uh,
sorry. What I
I
meant.
understand. I understand.
Okay, right.
So I'm just so see. I what you said is correct. Now these days, young law graduates are seeing it as a more. It's we are getting a lot of applications. If you see, every day we are getting a lot of applications from graduates of premier law schools, national law schools, and who want to pursue a career in legal science. And even we have made recruited new people as well. Many of them are fresh law graduates,
Yeah.
and they want to do a career in legal. They want to do legal journalism, and so it is becoming an attractive career option. So that I can that I have also noticed, because the kind of applications, the CVs we receive, and people are youngsters are showing a more deeper interest in legal journalism. So when live law started, 8 years back, that was not the case. It was not seen as a very viable option, career option as such. And I believe that see, legal journalism has a it has not reached its complete potential. There are a lot, there is a lot of scope for further growth. So it
Wow.
is still in its beginning stage, I would say. A lot of things can be explored more. So scope for growth is there, and it's good. It's and when you have legally trained people reporting on courts and commenting on courts developments, I think it certainly improves the quality of reporting,
Definitely.
uh, and and it will help the public as well. Public will be able to understand court proceedings in a better when a legally trained person is doing the reporting.
But then, sir, do you also think a degree in journalism is important for those law graduates who are deciding to pursue legal journalism, or law background is sufficient enough?
I don't know. So we don't insist on a degree in journalism. Our requirement is a degree in law. That is a non-negotiable requirement as far as we are concerned.
Definitely.
And a degree in journalism, that I don't have a degree in journalism, and many of our people
Right.
don't have a degree in. But of course, I mean, so but uh, I can tell you that uh, lack of a formal education in journalism, that is a handicap, I would say. And so I had invested a lot of time in understanding journalistic principles and
Yeah.
methods and techniques. I used to read on all these journalistic books. I took a lot of effort because I am not a trained journalist. I'm a trained lawyer. So
Yeah.
uh, I had to change my mindset, for doing this editorial work as well. Because uh, uh, when you think like a journalist, because when you're thinking like a lawyer, you may not be able to connect with the common man, the common public,
Hmm.
who may not be uh, from the legal field,
True.
because you will be using a lot of jargons and your own complicated phraseology, etc. Because but a journalist, when you're thinking from a journalistic point of view, you will be able to understand what the common public wants and how they'll be able to comprehend. So you'll be breaking down things for them. So that mindset will definitely improve your report. And also editorial techniques and editorial
Hmm.
policies, etc. These things also, you need to have that journalistic exposure, although not necessarily a degree.
Yeah.
So I uh, took some efforts to read up on books on journalism, etc., and also to interact with journalists and editors of other media. And so these things have helped, and I'm still in that learning process, because
Right.
journalism is not an easy job. I mean, it also requires certain skills and mindset. It's not
Definitely.
something, it's not like, okay, you're just reporting what is happening, and that is not the case. I mean, you need to
Right.
have a special mindset for that. You need to have certain skills for that, and that is also there. So you need to blend both for doing legal journalism. So
So just coming again to the final sets of question, uh, like you said, there are a lot of applications that you're receiving, even from students from premier law schools. So what is it that Live Law is looking for in the graduates so that our viewers listening who wish to apply can benefit from it? What are the qualities that Live Law is looking for in the people that it wishes to recruit?
so you need to have, of course, you need to have proper legal knowledge, and also you need to have an understanding about the political and social developments in the country, what is happening, how, the general atmosphere, general uh, public, what are the current trends, the trends of political trends as well as social trends. So you need to have that social commitment and social mindset as well, to understand and grasp the current developments. So because whatever happens in court, that is an extension of what is happening outside, in the political arena as well as in the social field, etc. So you need to have that social sense as well as that political sense, and also a news sense. What makes news, and how the news should be projected. So these uh, qualities you need, not just your legal knowledge, and also your ability to
Yeah.
write in a very lucid manner, simple manner, uh, but at the same time conveying the idea to the people, to the readers. So we are looking for these skills.
Right. I understand. And another thing, so like you said that legal journalism still hasn't reached its potential and that there's a long way to go before it finally does. So in this sense, how do you see the other legal journalism portals in the market? Do you see them as competition? Do you see them as an encouragement to do things better? How do you approach your relationship with other portals that are existing in the similar field?
It is always good to have competition. So when you have a good competitor, you will also be careful. That will also help in improving yourself.
Yeah.
And also it is, it acts as a corrective force. I would put it
True.
that way. So if you are making any mistakes, they, you can't just, so you have to be extra careful. You can't just misreport something, because there are other purpose. So they'll be reporting the correct thing, and then you will be caught by the public. So that will affect your credibility. So that will always keep you on the guard. So it is good to have competitors, and I believe that it is competition which will keep your quality in check, and that will definitely improve your standards. So uh, I see them as competitors. Definitely, competition is there, but there is no rivalry or, enmity, or no strong and extreme negativity is not there.
Right.
I have, we interact with others. We have friends in other portals. We have daily conversations about what is happening, etc. So that is there.
And so, sir, finally, I'll come to the last question because we're out of time. And this is a question that I ask all the guests who've been on the show so far. And that is, if you would like to give some book recommendations to our viewers and listeners, please feel free to do so.
So this is 1 year where I could not read much. My reading time has, reduced a lot.
Yeah.
I'm also responsible. I'm also to be blamed for that. You tend to watch more. Instead of watching all these Netflix series, you should read books. But
But
that
feel
was
free
my
to
New
recommend
Year
some
resolution that year.
Netflix movies or
Right,
shows as
right.
well, sir, that you enjoyed. Anything at all.
So one book I read this year, which I liked a lot, that is you must have read, Tyranny of Merit. That book.
Michael Sandel's
Have you
book.
read that book? You must have heard about it.
Yeah, Michael
Right,
Sanders'
right.
book.
So
I
that
have it.
book
I am
was
still reading it.
uh, I'm like, that completely changed my perspective and understanding on a lot of things. How you see this concept of merit and uh, that kind of deconstructed many of my notions, inventions and prejudices. So I read that book, a few times, and certain paragraphs I read it again as well. So and it was a huge unlearning process for me that helped me unlearn many of my inbuilt prejudices and your false notions. So
Right.
I strongly recommend that book. So I'm sure most of you have read or at least heard about that book. And also, being in the field of law, that will help you a lot because we will constantly encounter these issues, merit and reservation. That's a very hot topic in India. That will remain a hot topic in India. And so that's really good. I mean, I really like that book. It was very educative and enlightening for me personally.
Wonderful. And I think with this, sir, we can come to an end of today's conversation. Thank you so much for taking time out and sharing your insights with us. I'm sure all the viewers will benefit greatly from it. Thank you so much for joining me today.